Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at some fun tips to keep your lower league career modes very interesting in FIFA 22. I've got a couple of tips that I've collected over the years, and hopefully if you follow them or give them a go, you will also have as much fun playing with these unknown small teams as I do. I don't want to waste anyone's time, so let's get straight into it with tip number 1. That's going to be focusing on certain attributes to build your squad around. So, for example, you might have a certain style of play that you want to use. For example, high pressing, where you'll need stamina work rates and strength to be really high. You might be playing counter-attack, where you need pace, passing and composure to finish off your counter-attacks. Or you might want to play long ball, so you're going to have a squad built around strength, height, long passing and heading. But you could also build this around other things that aren't fully technical or physical attributes. Maybe mental ones. Maybe you want a team that's got really high aggression or really good composure. It sort of limits the players that you can sign. It restricts you to signing new players that you've probably never used before, because you'll only be signing players that fit into your tactic and your style of football. I think this is a really good way to play in the lower leagues, because there are some players that will be 60 for everything and then just have 80 composure, or they might be an average in everything as well but have really good aggression. You might not sign them because of their average stats elsewhere, but if they are really aggressive and that's exactly what you're trying to build in your squad, then they could be the perfect player for you. So that's tip number 1, is to try and sign players with certain attributes when you're building your squad, just to try and make a club identity. Tip number 2 is picking a team that has either interesting history, interesting kits, or an interesting stadium. These 3 things are just about the only things you can't change when you're building your FIFA career mode. Of course, you'll be making new history in your career mode, but unless you're on PC, there's no way to add new kits or change the stadium of your club. That's why I think I always enjoy teams that have either a real stadium. There's one in the 3rd division of Germany, for example. I gave them a go and they were actually really fun, even though they were playing in a rented stadium from a Bundesliga team. If they've got a kit that I really like, I find that I stick with the save longer and therefore have more fun because I'm more attached to the players. And of course, if a team's got good history, someone like Kaiserslautern in the 3rd division or Bradford in the 4th division of England, then you have something to try and replicate, something to try and strive to achieve. So I do find that that also makes the saves a lot more fun, a lot more enjoyable, and have a lot more longevity, which is of course a key part of having fun on FIFA career mode. Another thing to notice when you're picking a team is to try and make sure you don't have a kit that's very similar to lots of other teams in the league. For example, I know there's a lot of German teams that have red on their kits in the 1st division, and I know in the 2nd division of Spain there's a lot of teams with blue. So if you try and avoid this, you'll always stand out from the rest of the league. Tip number 3 is to not get too attached to your players. The chances are when you start off with your squad, you'll have at least one player who's either really good at defensive or really good at dribbling, really fast, really good at shooting, scores a lot of goals for you. And then you'll get promoted and realise that they're not quite good enough to do it at that level as well. For example, you might have someone with 80 pace in League 2, he can absolutely dominate every defender there. You'll get to League 1 and realise that some of the centre-backs in that league actually have 75, 80 pace of their own, so he's not really that effective. But because you've got attached to this player, you don't want to let him go, and then you have less and less fun because you can't win as many matches and you get relegated and you get sacked, and it's overall a bad experience. You should of course try and keep some all the way to the top if you are planning on getting to the top, where teams like Blackpool and Bournemouth have actually done this in real life, with players like Mark Pugh playing in League 2 for Bournemouth and also playing in the Premier League for Bournemouth. So there is some level of attachment, but they have to be good enough to make it to the top. For our 4th tip in this video is kind of related to the last tip, which is not getting attached to your players, and that's to not rebuild your team every single year. It's kind of the opposite of the last tip, where I'm saying don't get too attached and keep your players when you've outgrown them. But you really shouldn't be signing 11 new players every time you get promoted for your starting team. In real life, you'll probably replace 3 or 4 each time you get promoted, and then 2 or 3 every time you're staying in the same league. So you will progress slower up the leagues, and you'll enjoy your time in the lower leagues a little bit more. The reason you're trying to even do a lower league management save is probably because you don't want to rush to the Premier League. If you were too interested in playing the top flight, you would have just chosen a team already there, someone like a Bayern Munich or a Real Madrid. Instead, you want to enjoy your time by playing against these different teams, these different players that you've probably never played against. So that's why you should try and keep it a little bit slower when you are building your team. Don't go straight for the Premier League players when you're in League 1, because when you do stuff like that, it really can ruin your save by giving you a way too overpowered team. So just take your time and enjoy your ride to the top. If you are trying to avoid having an overpowered, easy team, then make sure you're not abusing the Youth Academy, which is our 5th tip. It's super easy to get a team of 80 plus potential players while you're still in either League 1 or League 2. Of course, this would never happen in real life. If there was any hint of a player having this much talent, they would have been snapped up by the Premier League before they even made an appearance in one of these leagues. Even teams like Crewe Alexandria, who are famous for having a really good youth academy, have only ever had a maximum of 5 players with over 70 potential. There's no problem with having lots and lots of youth, just try to keep the potentials realistic. If you have got a player with 82 potential, maybe just try and make sure you only have one of those. If you keep getting lots and lots of them, maybe just refuse to sign them or wait for that one to be sold before replacing him with another one from your academy, because you won't have this kind of talent in League 2. You should always be selling players who are too good for your league, of course. I've seen screenshots of people who have 78 overall players in League 2 because they've performed so well, they've got dynamic potential, and in real life this wouldn't happen. Ollie Watkins was absolutely bossing League 2. He got a move to the Championship before he was even 70 rated. He was probably good enough, and on FIFA with his performances he probably would have been in the high 70s. But of course in real life, Exeter had to sell him to Brentford because the amount of money they were offering was insane for a League 2 team. If you can keep on top of this and make sure you're selling players who are too good for the league, it will make your career mode a lot more fun because it will be a bit more challenging. The final tip in this video is to give different leagues a go. You don't always have to play in England. Germany, France and Spain have a bunch of really good teams, either with real stadiums, really good history, really good players, or really good kits. They might be less promotions to get to the top, but you can actually take just as many seasons to get there because there are better teams in those leagues. For most people, no matter who you take over in League 2, you can probably get promoted if you play every single match in the first season. This probably isn't the case for most people if you're starting off in the Spanish second division because there are some really good teams, so if you've picked one of the worst ones, it'll probably take you 2 or 3 seasons to get there anyway. At which point you would probably be in either the Championship or the Premier League anyway if you'd started in England, and that's why you should give these teams a go. If you're finding these 2 division teams a little bit too easy, of course you can always just create a club that's nowhere near good enough, give yourself no money, and see if you can struggle your way to the top flight, which would be a pretty interesting challenge. I did something similar to this by recreating Deportivo, giving them no money, giving them a 1-star team where the average team is around 3 stars, and just tried to see how high up I could get with only a few real players in my team. I managed to finish about 5th bottom in the first season, which I thought was pretty good, and then because I've got attached to these real players, even if they were old or people I'd never heard of, I actually had a really fun career mode. It took me around 4 seasons to actually get to the top flight, and I had a full team of real players by that point with a couple of youth academy ones, and I really loved my team. I loved the kits that I'd made, I loved the fake stadium, I loved everything about that save, and it was really fun. And that's why I think you should try and do something like this on your next FIFA career mode. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully at least one of the 6 tips is something you didn't know, something you can apply to your next career mode going forwards. But if you do have any of the tips that you think people should know, feel free to either message them on our Discord, which is linked in the description below, or in the comments below, where I'm sure a lot of people will read them and post their own tips for you to read yourself. So thank you all for watching. See you very soon for our next video. Subscribe if you like the video, drop it a like, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you and goodbye.